Somewhere right now, a grown adult is playing a song at full volume, nodding along, completely convinced it's good. Meanwhile, everyone in the room is quietly calculating how fast they could leave the building. This happens billions of times a day, all over the planet. And today we're going to find out why, because it turns out your terrible taste in music isn't actually your fault. It's biology, it's psychology, it's basically a conspiracy your own brain ran on you before you turned 10. Let's start with the most obvious culprit, familiarity. Back in 1968, a psychologist named Robert Zajonc ran an experiment where he showed people random symbols, nonsense shapes, Chinese characters to non-readers, that sort of thing, over and over again. And the more people saw a symbol, the more they said they liked it, not because it got better. It didn't change at all. It just became familiar, and the brain quietly filed familiar under safe and safe under good. This is called the mere exposure effect, and it is the reason your uncle still thinks the song that played at every wedding in 1994 is a banger. His brain isn't wrong exactly. It's just been running the same loop for 30 years and refuses to update its priors. Which brings us to an even weirder phenomenon, the reminiscence bump. Studies on musical memory keep finding the same thing. People overwhelmingly prefer music from their teenage years and early 20s, no matter what decade that happened to be. Ask someone why the music of their generation was objectively the best, and what they're really telling you is, this is what was playing while my brain was going through the single most emotionally chaotic identity formation period of my life, so now it's fused permanently with my sense of self, which is a lot to unpack for a Nickelback song. Okay, but familiarity doesn't explain everything. Two people can grow up in the same house, hear the same songs, and still end up on opposite ends of the musical universe. So what's going on there? Personality. There's a well-known study, often nicknamed the do-re-mis of everyday life, that mapped musical preference onto personality traits, and the results are almost insultingly accurate. People high in openness to experience, the curious philosophical, let's try the weird restaurant types, tend to gravitate toward complex, unconventional music, jazz, classical, experimental stuff. People high in extroversion lean toward upbeat, energetic, danceable music because their brains are basically already at the party. Meanwhile, people who score high on conscientiousness tend to prefer conventional, structured, mainstream music. Which is deeply unfair to conscientious people, but also, weirdly, checks out. So your music taste is, in part, a personality test you never agreed to take. Now here's where it gets genuinely wild. Not everyone's brain even rewards music the same way. Music triggers dopamine release in a part of the brain called the nucleus accumbens, the same reward center involved in food and, unfortunately, also gambling. For most people, a great chorus hits and the brain lights up like a slot machine. But researchers have identified a small percentage of people, somewhere around 3 to 5%, who get little to no pleasure from music at all. It's called specific musical anhedonia, and it's not depression, it's not hearing loss, it's not being a music snob who's above it. Their auditory processing is completely normal, but the wiring between the hearing part of the brain and the reward part is just quieter than everyone else's. They can recognize a song is technically well made and feel absolutely nothing. Somewhere out there is a person who has heard your favorite song 30 times and experienced the emotional equivalent of watching paint dry, and it is not their fault, and also it's slightly terrifying. And then, just to make this whole thing feel even more rigged, there's genetics. Twin studies comparing identical twins to fraternal twins have found a substantial heritability component in how people judge and enjoy music, somewhere around half the variation in musical taste tracks along genetic lines, independent of upbringing. So somewhere in your DNA, right next to the genes for eye color and your unfortunate inability to grow a full beard, there's a gene quietly whispering, you will enjoy sad piano music, or you will unironically like EDM drops. And finally, the social layer. Music isn't just sound, it's a flag. Genre preference has always doubled as a tribal signal, a way of saying, these are my people, before you've said a single word. That's why teenagers defend their music with the intensity of a border dispute. It was never really about the music. It was about identity, belonging, and being extremely certain that the other tribe's flag has terrible bass. So the next time someone plays a song that makes your soul leave your body, take a breath. It's not really their fault. It's exposure effects, personality wiring, dopamine plumbing, inherited genes, and tribal identity, all working together at once to produce one very confident person, one aux cord, and absolutely no survivors. Science says you're both right. Science also says you should probably just take turns.